morning, guys. Sitting here on my prayer walk this morning, walking downtown, so that's why you hear a lot of noise going on in the background. And as I'm praying, this thought dropped in my spirit with something I was pondering, meditating on last night before I went to bed. And that's how I was thinking about how God's sanctuary in his churches and things of that nature, how holy and sacred it is. I'm just looking at these different, what triggered the thought was I'm looking at these different businesses as I walk by them. And I thought about how sacred, how important, or you could say holy in a sense, these businesses, these institutions are to the owners. That many of them will go out their way to invest finances, resources, and whatever it is to sustain their businesses. They go out their way to take care of it. And as a result, when we go into these places, there are just certain things that are not allowed in these facilities in order to maintain the safety, the cleanliness of their work environment. And sometimes we fail to think about that when it comes to God's sanctuary. You know, I think about scriptures in the book of Ezekiel. God did take me to a scripture last night when I was thinking about how holy his sanctuary is, where in Ezekiel, when the angel of the Lord approached Ezekiel and said to him, "Look, see what they're doing?" Sorry, that was a truck. See what they're doing in the temple of God, of course. And they were doing all kind of unholy and profane things in his house. Now, granted, the stuff that they were doing was grotesque sin. Well, sin is grotesque, period, whatever it is in God's eye. But they were doing all kind of sexual and perverted things in the temple, in God's house. They were not treating it holy. But how is it today that we are also doing the same thing in God's house and not thinking about the little minor things because it looks small in our eyes? For example, I know a lot of churches that I've at least tend to like to offer coffee and tea before the service for their members and guests. But I remember one church that I went to. It was a mega church in Charlotte. There was a certain time you could not enter into the sanctuary. Only the worship team and those who were in the assembly walking around praying was allowed in the sanctuary. And one of the other things you could not bring into the sanctuary was drinks, food, etc. And there was a reason behind their madness. Also, when you think about different theaters and things that we go to in auditoriums, a lot of those don't allow food and drink. Why? Because it damages, stains, destroys the material investment they have in place. Chairs, carpet, etc. So we need to give thought to about treating God's house sacred, as holy as it deserves. That means being very precautious about what we do in that place. What do we allow to occur in that place? Just food for thought. God has put that real heavy on my spirit. Now, I don't know what he has been planned for me when I get back to the house to study this morning. But I suspect, because he took me to that scripture in Ezekiel, where Ezekiel had told the prophet, "Look what they're doing in my house." So we need to ask ourselves, that's my question of the day. What are we doing in God's house? What are we bringing in? What are we allowing that can cause a mess and not treat it as holy? right now popping in my mind is the temple that the priests were only allowed to enter. And when they went in to that temple, they had to tie a rope around their ankle just in case something happens to them and somebody can pull them out. They treated God's temple holy, and only thing that was allowed was the things that God had instructed they were allowed to be in his house. So what about us? What about us? What about us? Are we treating God's sanctuary as holy, the most holy place that it should be, by not bringing things into that place, that sanctuary place, that can cause what looked like a minor stain, what looked like a minor damage to carpet, chairs, and all the sacred utilities, because that's what they are. The seatings in God's house are sacred because what it represents. The pulpit, which is God's altar, is sacred because that's what it represents. Everything that's in the sanctuary are sacred tools that God uses to minister to the people. So are we treating it like that? Or are we treating it like our homes? Food for thought. Think about that, people. Well, if God gives me something this morning when I get back to the house to talk about, if he leads me back to the book of Ezekiel, I'll share it with y'all later on. All right, so let me get back to my prayer walk. Deuces, as I always say, stay faithful to God. I love you. Stay in his will, whatever that is for you to do, he's calling you to do. And I'll talk with y'all later. All right, peace.